For over 60 years, the world has wondered if there really was a crash of a flying disc near Roswell, New Mexico in July of 1947. Now a new document has surfaced that comes directly from the source, can be verified, and cannot be challenged. More on this document later. Here are photos of the actual UFO crash site supplied by the Roswell Museum. A short distance from the crash site, military reconnaissance locates the bodies of the extraterrestrials. The military would transport their remains along with debris from the flying disc to 8th Air Force in Fort Worth, Texas. General Ramey issues a statement regarding the recovery of the so-called flying disc near Roswell, New Mexico. Ramey says it was a weather balloon. After the crash in Roswell, New Mexico, President Truman would establish the MJ-12 team. The team would be composed of 6 military and 6 civilians. It would be their responsibility to formulate the guidelines that would be used in the event of another UFO crash where a recovery was possible. These guidelines would become known as the Special Operations Manual, or SOM. The official military cover-up would now begin. During this period of time, Stalin was able to establish a network of spies within the United States. The United States was clearly concerned about Russian espionage activities, as this FBI document shows. It was FBI Director Hoover who would complain to General Shulgin about his attempt to investigate reported UFO crashes and the military's interference. Does this document provide positive proof of the existence of UFOs?
Come, Lavrenti. The world is changing and we must protect the Soviet Union.
The world is always in a state of transition, Mr. Premier.
There is word that the Americans have recovered a UFO near Roswell, New Mexico.
Yes, Mr. Premier. They're also trying to find out if the British Embassy in Washington has been infiltrated by the Soviet spies.
These investigations by the Americans could put our agents in very difficult positions.
Possibly.
We have 5 Cambridge University graduates in position to obtain specific sensitive information about American and British projects. The British Embassy in Washington is the center of our espionage activities.
And Donald McLean has been our best agent inside the embassy.
I want you to contact Guy Burgess and have him put pressure on McLean to obtain this information that we are looking for.
Yes, Mr. Premier.
I must know if the Americans have obtained a UFO outside Roswell, New Mexico.
The FBI, as well as British intelligence, has been all over the embassy, Mr. Premier. We must move with caution or suffer the consequences.
Nevertheless, Lavrenti, we must take some risks if we are to protect and defend the Soviet Union against these American imperialists.
The Cambridge 5 has performed admirably, Mr. Premier. I'm sure they'll get the information we need.
Yes, but it is your responsibility, Lavrenti. And you know what the penalty is for failure.
The same as it always has been, Mr. Premier. A bullet to the head.
Yes, and your position will not save you.
I will keep it in mind, Mr. Premier.
The British Embassy in Washington would become the focal point of Stalin's espionage activities, and the Cambridge 5 would carry out his diabolical plan through his KGB chief, Lavrenti Beria. The Cambridge 5 were all graduates from Cambridge University. They came to the United States to spy for Stalin. Meetings between Soviet Premier Joseph Stalin and KGB chief Lavrenti Beria would have to be considered logical extensions of events that were taking place. The Cambridge 5 spy team was the most successful Soviet espionage team ever assembled on American soil. All 5 of them were recruited by the KGB and sent to the United States to spy for Stalin. Working out of the British Embassy in Washington, D.C., they managed to carry out covert operations against the U.S. as well as the British. Vital information regarding secret British and American projects were compromised because the Cambridge Five had access to communications between President Truman and British Prime Minister Churchill.
Well, Guy.
Barry has made our mission very clear. He wants us to find out about Roswell and the Kelso crash that killed the 2 Americans.
Yes, Stalin is not someone you want to disappoint, even if you are Barry or the KGB chief.
All of our lives are now in danger.
British intelligence is intent on finding out if there is a leak in their embassy in Washington. That puts you under suspicion, Donald.
And Anthony, let's not forget the FBI.
All I know is someone better have an exit strategy, just in case. They're not going to put a bullet in my head.
Calm down, John. I've made all the arrangements should the need arise.
We must act quickly. Barry wants to know if the Americans recovered a UFO near Roswell, New Mexico.
Yes, and the sooner we can get that information, the better.
Christ, Guy. With security being as tight as it is, I don't see how.
Nevertheless,
McLean is in the best position to get that information. His post at the embassy should allow us access.
nevertheless, what Stalin wants, Stalin gets.
You know, Guy, I'm sort of the unofficial member of the group, and I don't want to be placed in the middle of Stalin's reach.
You'll do as you are told. Unless, of course, you want to take that up with Barry.
The Americans shall not be underestimated. Truman wants to know if sabotage may have been responsible for the death of the 2 Army Air Force intelligence officers killed in the Keslow crash.
Yes, Kim. And the FBI on the Hoover is looking at possible Soviet ties to the crash.
Well, I think Barry should be contacted. He must be made to understand that we're going to need more time if we're to get the information that Stalin wants.
I agree. We must all be on our guard. And if things get out of hand, we must get out before we are taken by the authorities, especially British intelligence.
I will contact Barry. In the meantime, Donald, see what information might be available at the embassy.
I will. This is the first and only time we're to meet together as a group unless things begin to unravel and we're forced to consider defecting.
Yes, it would be wise not to meet this way again, gentlemen.
Yes, I agree. In the meantime, we have an exit plan in case the FBI or British intelligence get too close for comfort. And I agree entirely, we shouldn't meet again. So be careful. And let's hope that we can complete this mission as quickly as possible.
Cheers, Globe.
Well, Frank, this mission we're going on is highly secretive, to say the least.
Yes, I mean, this UFO connection just has me wondering. What can we expect from this meeting in Tacoma?
Well, I was told it involves remnants of a UFO that had some trouble. Pieces of it actually fell on a harbor patrol boat.
Do you really believe all this, Bill?
Well, apparently the powers that be do. If they didn't, we wouldn't be going.
What about the B-25?
Got the final clearance in the B-25 yesterday. The plane has been totally overhauled. In fact, both engines were replaced.
Good, good. You know, the last thing we need right now are some mechanical problems.
Look, we've got to fly to Tacoma for the meeting. Take possession of the secret cargo, then fly back to Hamilton Field as soon as possible.
I'll be glad when all this is over, Bill. You know, the whole thing just has me on edge.
Frank, what are you worried about? What could possibly go wrong?
Why do I feel as though this mission is much more important than we've been led to believe?
Perhaps it is, Frank, but we're never going to know till we get there. You ready for takeoff?
Tomorrow's a big day.
Captain William Davidson and Lieutenant Frank Brown left Hamilton Field in California to fly to a meeting with Kenneth Arnold in Tacoma, Washington State. Here we see a copy of the orders sending Davidson and Brown on their mission, dated July 31st, 1947. We know that Kenneth Arnold attended this meeting because of this document from Venture Press that agreed to pay Arnold to go to Tacoma and facilitate the transfer of the secret cargo to Davidson and Brown. At their meeting, they were given 7 metal fragments believed to be extraterrestrial. After their meeting in Tacoma, Captain Davidson and Lieutenant Brown boarded their B-25 with the secret cargo. After reaching an altitude of 10,000 feet, according to the military, their left engine caught fire, causing the plane to crash near Kelso in Washington state. The military had insisted all along that Davidson and Brown were on an administrative mission and had nothing to do with UFOs. The following government document clearly shows that Davidson and Brown were on a secret mission involving UFOs, not simply on an administrative mission, as had been stated by the military. Even the local newspapers knew they were on a UFO mission. Donald McLean could very well have learned about the Davidson trip to Tacoma to meet with Kenneth Arnold and the secret cargo and informed KGB Chief Beria. Donald McLean had access to communications between Winston Churchill and President Truman. History tells us that Stalin was very interested in UFOs. The Soviet dictator was concerned about what the recovery of a UFO would mean to the balance of power in the world. Scientific as well as military advantages could tip the balance of power in favor of the United States. Did the KGB order its agents in the U.S. to try and secure the contents of the secret cargo carried by Davidson and Brown by ordering them to shoot down the B-25 bomber, number 44-31316? Did the Soviets have the resources on the ground to accomplish that scenario? If Captain Davidson's B-25 was sabotaged, then common sense tells us that it would have had to have taken place at McChord Airfield. Davidson and Brown flew from Hamilton Field in California to McChord Airfield in Washington state with no problems. So let's speculate for a moment that the B-25 was sabotaged at McChord. As this document shows, the FBI received numerous reports to that effect. Who could have been involved? Evidence may point to either the Americans or the Soviets. The mind boggles. If the Americans were involved, did they have someone on the base at McChord who would carry out some diabolical plan to get the secret cargo? Perhaps he was part of a group of patriotic Americans with close ties to President Truman's newly formed secret MJ-12 team. Their plan might have involved gaining entry to the base and then to somehow disable the B-25 while they managed to steal the secret cargo Davidson and Brown were carrying. Is it possible that Stalin could have learned about the UFO mission Davidson and Brown were on and made an effort to intercede?
So why the meeting?
I received a secret communication the day before yesterday.
Another mission.
So soon. This mission is unlike any other mission we have ever gone on before.
We just returned from Paris. Did you verify the communique?
Of course I did. But I must admit, I was surprised by the source.
So what exactly is this secret mission? And what are the risks involved?
2 American Air Force intelligence officers, Captain Davidson and Lieutenant Brown, will arrive in Washington state to deliver a very important cargo in Tacoma. The risks are substantial.
Can I get you anything else?
No, thank you. The risks are always substantial, just like our last mission in Paris.
So long as we're well paid, and I can return my body intact.
When they arrive in Tacoma, they will be given a secret cargo of 7 metal fragments believed to be extraterrestrial. The mission is to move the cargo to Hamilton Field in California.
Did you say extraterrestrial? Are we talking UFOs and alien life forms?
You are not serious.
Whatever the cargo is, it must not reach Hamilton Field.
You're not suggesting that we eliminate Davidson and Brown?
No, I don't think he meant that. Did you?
Of course not. No one has sanctioned the murder of 2 Americans.
Nevertheless, the risks involved in this mission will be substantial.
I think we all understand that. What I have a problem with is this UFO thing.
One more question. What if we happen to fail and the cargo ends up in California?
We better not fail. Our reputation will take a hit. Governments hire us because we get the job done. We deliver. We could be on the ground at McCord Airfield by nightfall tomorrow. Arrangements are being made.
Make sure. I don't want to arrive at McCord and end up in jail as a spy.
I'm sure they don't want to take us into custody. We know too much.
So let's talk about how we're going to get the job done once we gain access to the B-52.
First of all, we've got to get the job done quickly before anyone realizes what the hell is going on.
Well, if we can't locate the cargo right away, we'll have to disable the plane somehow, so it can't take off.
We've done this before. Perhaps the engines. It is my understanding, Vladimir, that the engines on the B-25 have been replaced when the plane was overhauled.
If it's true, we'll have to make it look like some sort of mechanical malfunction.
The letters cripple the electrical system. It's complicated, I know, but no one would ever question it.
I agree. It happens all the time. We keep the plane on the ground. We give ourselves the opportunity to take the secret cargo.
So we'll disable the electrical system and force them to remain at McCord for at least 2 days.
If anyone questions what you are doing on board, tell them nothing. Refer them to me.
I have to wonder which side ordered this action, the Americans or the Soviets.
Doesn't matter.
Not really, Chris. But I like to know who benefits from my work.
Not me. I could care less. So long as I'm paid, I don't care which side pays for my services.
I have to agree with Chris. What difference does it make? The Americans, they want to save the world, and the Soviets, they want to dominate it.
Exactly. People are slaves in either society. It's time to go. Everybody, make sure you have no markings or identification. We'll be on the ground aboard tomorrow night.
Did the FBI play an active role in the investigation into the deaths of Captain William Davidson and Lieutenant Frank Brown? As of this current date, a Freedom of Information Act request to the FBI has gone unanswered. My request centered on any photos they may have taken at the crash site and any reports that were filed at the time of the crash. If Captain Davidson's B-25 was sabotaged, then common sense tells us that it would have had to have taken place at McCord Airfield. Davidson and Brown flew from Hamilton Field in California to McCord Airfield in Washington State with no problems.
Colonel Springer, you've come highly recommended by some very influential people.
Thank you, Mr. President. But it's still unclear as to what the mission is all about.
Your primary mission, Colonel, is to locate the secret cargo that was being transported by Captain Davidson and Lieutenant Brown. Once found, you must have it flown to Wright Field in Ohio.
It is my understanding that the cargo may be extraterrestrial.
We don't know that, Colonel.
From the FBI reports, Mr. President, there may be evidence suggesting that the plane was sabotaged, maybe even shot down.
We don't know that either, Colonel.
There have been rumors, Mr. President, that some of your closest advisors may have been involved. Oh, not directly, you understand, but through the actions of some patriotic Americans.
If my people were involved, they'll answer to me. I never sanctioned the killing of 2 Americans.
You may not like what I find, Mr. President.
Do your investigation, Colonel. Let the chips fall where they may. But the cargo must be found and secured. I will issue a presidential order sending you to Kelso.
As long as we are clear on what my mission is and what the consequences might be, I'll leave in the morning.
You will answer directly to me, and no one else. Is that understood?
Perfectly.
After the Roswell crash, President Truman formed the MJ-12 team. Their mission was to formulate new procedures that would be used in the event of another UFO crash. These procedures would become known as the Special Operations Manual, or SOM. Little did anyone know at the time that they would play an important role in the August 1st, 1947 crash that killed Captain William Davidson and Lieutenant Frank Brown. Lieutenant Colonel Donald Springer arrives in Kelso to take over the investigation of the Kelso crash that killed Captain Davidson and Lieutenant Frank Brown. Springer was assigned to Army Air Force Intelligence by presidential order, but Springer was a UFO investigator, as these documents clearly show. Why did President Truman send Springer, a UFO investigator? to go to Kelso to investigate a B-25 crash. This document seems to suggest that Springer may have had some connection to the FBI. It was President Truman's order that sent Lieutenant Colonel Donald Springer to Kelso to take over the investigation of the plane crash that killed Davidson and Brown, so this meeting is a logical extension of what may have happened prior to Springer's appointment. Springer would employ those procedures created by Truman's MJ-12 team, known as the Special Operations Manual, or SOM. So it seems very clear that Lieutenant Colonel Donald Springer's primary mission in Kelso was to find the secret cargo and have it transported to Wright Field in Ohio. The fragments would be compared to remnants of the UFO found at the Roswell crash site. But Springer would get more than he bargained for. He would uncover evidence of possible sabotage directed against Captain Davidson's B-25. But by whom? One of the main objectives of this documentary is to call for a congressional investigation into the deaths of Captain William Davidson and Lieutenant Frank Brown. Here now is the evidence that suggests that they may have been the victims of sabotage. Looking at the crash site photos supplied by the military in the Major Accident Report, notice the discrepancy in the plane's identification number. The report has the plane's number listed as 44-31316, but the crash site photo clearly shows the plane's ID number as BD316, the only numbers that are seen. Is this the same aircraft that Captain Davidson and Lieutenant Brown were in? Work records for the aircraft were believed taken on board the plane and believed destroyed in the crash. So we have no idea who may have worked on the B-25 while the plane was on the ground at McChord Airfield. The pre-flight inspection form had Captain Davidson's name typed in instead of his handwritten signature as required. Davidson and Brown were both experienced pilots, yet they did not get out of the plane according to the Department of the Air Force. Newspaper reports have the bodies found outside the aircraft. Why the discrepancy? The B-25 they were in had been completely overhauled. They received their final clearance the day before they left Hamilton Field in California to fly to McChord Airfield in Washington State. Yet the military listed fire in the left engine, possible exhaust problem, as the cause of the plane's crash. No autopsies were performed on the bodies. One photo was released to the press for the newspapers of the crash site. Do you see any sign of a B-25? 4th Air Force did not list any fatal accidents during this time period. The Kelso Police Department report of the crash is missing. The Highway Patrol report of the crash is missing. The Weyerhaeuser Timber Company owns the land where the plane crashed. In a telephone conversation with a Colleen Larson, she denied that a crash ever took place, even though the company is listed on the Major Accident Report as having sent a team to the crash to investigate. There are no military records or photos of this Lieutenant Colonel Donald Springer. He is a total mystery. Lieutenant Colonel Donald Springer followed the procedures set down by the Special Operations Manual by using the Kelso Police Department and the Highway Patrol to set up an outer perimeter to prevent anyone from gaining access to the crash site. Springer would confiscate all local law enforcement reports concerning the crash. Springer would confiscate all photos of the crash site. Springer would issue statements that Captain Davidson and Lieutenant Brown were on an administrative mission that had nothing to do with UFOs. Springer would make sure that the area was totally cleansed before he and his team left and would instruct all law enforcement to say nothing. In the meantime, Stalin continued to use his contact Donald McLean at the British Embassy. KGB Chief Lavrenti Beria contacts yet another member of the Cambridge Five, Guy Burgess, to apply pressure on McLean to get the information Stalin wanted. This would have been a logical extension of the events of the day, since there were difficulties beginning to arise with the FBI and British intelligence coming closer and closer to cracking the Soviet code. Were the Soviets somehow involved in the crash that killed Captain William Davidson and Lieutenant Frank Brown? The FBI's own investigation would reveal reports that suggest the possibility that their B-25 may have been sabotaged or even shot down. During this period of time, the FBI was aware of Soviet espionage activities, as this document shows, and was making progress in trying to break the Soviet code. Soviet Premier Joseph Stalin and KGB chief Lavrenti Beria might have become concerned that their agents might be exposed, so a meeting discussing that possibility would have taken place.
You know, Lavrenti, just look at some of these young riders. They are the future of our equestrian team.
Yes, Mr. Premier. They're so young and so disciplined.
Someday they will represent the Soviet Union at the Olympic Games.
Yes, and perhaps even bring home the gold.
What news, Lavrenti?
It is my understanding from various sources that Cambridge 5 mission may be in jeopardy.
In what way, Lavrenti? Have they been found out by British or American authorities?
My sources tell me that the Americans are very close to breaking our code, Mr. Premier.
You know, the last thing in the world I need right now is a confrontation with the West. Ever since the end of the World War and the division of Germany, the West is looking for opportunities to exploit public opinion.
I know, Mr. Premier. It is not good turn of events. We have to act quickly. They will look to usurp your authority.
The Cambridge 5 must not be taken alive.
What are you suggesting, Mr. Premier? Assassination?
No one is indispensable, Lavrenti. You, of all people, should know that. They are not in a position to argue the point. We must prevent Donald McLean and the others from being arrested by the FBI and turned over to British authorities at all costs.
I realize that they are not indispensable, Mr. Premier, but perhaps there is a much better way to handle the situation instead of hiring an assassin to fire those lethal rounds.
And what is that, Lavrenti?
Have them defect. Once they learn about their position, they could not refuse. I'm sure they would want to leave rather than face arrest or possibly more. They understand what must happen to them if the British intelligence get to them first.
Perhaps. But you know, Lavrenti, in the old days, our methods never failed us. A bullet to the head and our problems went away.
Yes, Mr. Premier. A bullet to the head. But the Cambridge 5 possess very valuable information we made an investment in over the many years they were entrenched in the United States.
Very well, Lavrenti. Defection. But I will hold you personally responsible for the success of this mission. Rest assured that I have not abandoned the old methods of dealing with pressing problems. And your position will not save you.
I am well aware of that, Mr. Premier. I will contact Guy Burgess and have them put my plan into operation. I will sleep a lot better once the Cambridge 5 safely in Canada.
Make sure they leave nothing behind that can implicate the Soviet Union. There should be no evidence that can link me to the events in Kelso or the British Embassy in Washington.
Of course, Mr. Premier. All documents and communications will be destroyed.
Very well, Lavrenti. Put your plan in motion.
Yes, Mr. Premier.
Once Stalin found out that the Americans were getting closer and closer to breaking the Soviet code, which would expose all of their agents operating in the United States, this meeting would be a logical extension of events.
If you wanted to prove that a UFO crashed near Roswell, New Mexico, but you didn't have access to either the remnants of the UFO or the alien bodies, what would you do? How could you prove that such an event ever took place? A daunting task. It has long been rumored that President Truman made a secret trip to Wright Field in Ohio in September of 1947 to see what the military had recovered from the Roswell crash site. Since it was a secret trip and no one knew about it, if you could prove somehow that the trip actually took place, well, that would be something. It might just force the military to concede the Roswell event. But what about the alien bodies? Every UFO documentary I've ever seen fails to mention the alien bodies. Well, the story goes that the remnants of the UFO and the alien bodies were initially taken to 8th Air Force at Fort Worth, Texas. But what happened to the bodies after that? The two documents I am holding in my hands have never been seen before by anyone. The first one, an email, comes directly from Wright-Patterson Air Force Base, formerly Wright Field. This is a smoking gun document because it specifically states that President Truman visited Wright Field in September of 1947. The email has names attached to it, so it can be verified. It comes directly from the source, so in my judgment, cannot be challenged. The second smoking gun document may come to be even more important than the first. While President Truman was on a state trip to Rio, his airplane, the Independence, flew mysteriously to 8th Air Force at Fort Worth and then on to Wright Field in Ohio. The question is, why? Is it possible that this mysterious trip by the President's plane to 8th Air Force and then on to Wright Field in Ohio had something to do with the alien bodies? I contacted Barksdale Air Force Base, home of the Public Affairs Office for 8th Air Force. I spoke with the Sergeant Steves. He informed me that there was no record of President Truman's plane, the Independence, visiting 8th Air Force on the day in question. Well, the second smoking gun document clearly shows that the Independence was logged into Wright Field on September 8, 1947. But it's where the President's plane came from that's very significant. 8th Air Force, Fort Worth. Is it possible that the alien bodies were flown to Wright Field on September 8th from 8th Air Force? You be the judge.
Welcome, Mr. President. You said you wanted to meet somewhere where we could discuss certain high-level matters of great importance. What better place than a church?
Excellencies, I understand we're rehearsing for a Bach concert.
Yes, Mr. President, I know how you enjoy music.
You know, Colonel, this trip has been in the planning stages for quite some time now. Preparations were finally worked out on September 8th when I was on a state trip to Rio. A great many people have been deceived in order for me to make this trip to Wright Field on the 24th.
Yes, I'm very aware of that, Mr. President. History has summoned you to Wright.
Yes, history, Colonel. Is everything in readiness? I don't want anything to go wrong.
Everything is set, Mr. President. Hangar number 1 is where the remnants of the UFO are being kept. The bodies arrived on September 8th aboard the Independence.
Very well, Colonel. But you know the real reason why I may be at Wright on the 24th.
Yes, Mr. President. This is truly a historic moment in the history of the world. Every precaution will be taken to ensure the safety both of you and of our visitors.
I wonder what the consequences will be. Nothing like this has ever happened before in human history.
Your mission to Wright will go down as one of the greatest humanitarian and diplomatic feats in the history of the Republic. Our forefathers could never have imagined what will occur on the 24th of September.
I wonder how history will judge this monumental meeting between two worlds, so totally different, yet sharing a common bond.
Only time will tell, Mr. President. When I return to Wright, I will make sure that all of our preparations have been completed.
Secrecy, Colonel. That's what concerns me more than anything else at this point in time. I read reports that the Soviets are trying to get information on the Roswell crash.
I have seen those reports also, Mr. President. But there are only 2 ways to get into Wright Field: by presidential order or by special permission granted by me, sir.
Very well, Colonel. You've put my fears to rest. I'll see you on the 24th.
This meeting between Truman and Colonel Morris, the base commander at Wright Field in Ohio, may well have taken place, given the significance of Truman's preparations to visit there without the knowledge of the American people. It is a logical extension of the events of the day. In the meantime, President Truman, now back at the White House from his recent state trip, prepares for his secret trip to Wright Field in Ohio. Arrangements were probably made on the 8th of September, when the president's plane was logged into Wright Field so mysteriously and without any explanation, and never logged out. But was there another reason why President Truman made that secret trip to Wright Field? The alien bodies. What happened to the alien bodies? It is still unclear as to what date President Truman went to Wright without the knowledge of the American people. But here is food for thought. On September 24, 1947, the president had scheduled a meeting with two of his MJ-12 team, Vannevar Bush and James Forrestal. But Truman issued what's become known as the Forrestal Memo, outlining the formation of MJ-12. But if the president was going to meet with Forrestal on the 24th of September, why the memo? Could it be because Truman knew he would not be in the White House on the 24th, that he would be at Wright Field in Ohio? No such memo was issued to Bush. One would think at this point in time that the Cambridge 5 spy team would think about the possibility of defecting rather than spending time in prison as spies, or even worse. So it is a logical extension for them to meet and discuss the possibilities.
Welcome, comrades. We have reached a crossroads, and our lives now hang in the balance.
You must have a good reason for choosing this location for a meeting.
Yes, I've received an urgent communique from Beria.
Well, what does Beria want now, besides my soul?
If I know Beria, it probably means another assignment filled with danger.
Yes, Goyle. What does he want?
It seems the Americans are on the verge of breaking the Soviet code. If that happens, we are all dead men.
They're never going to take me alive, that's for sure.
All this talk about death. I do not believe the Americans will be able to break the Soviet code anytime soon.
Look, let's not lose our heads. What did Beria suggest we do?
Defect. Make our way to Canada now and then off to Moscow, and as soon as possible. There will be nothing left for us here in the United States, except a very long prison sentence, or perhaps much worse.
I agree. How terrible could it be?
Count me out. I will take my chances here. Besides, you all know what a maniac Stalin is. What guarantees would we be afforded? And once we are in Moscow, Beria might just have an assassin waiting for us. Besides, the United States has become sort of my adopted home.
Adopted home? Blunt, are you forgetting that you're a spy for the Soviet Union?
I see your point.
We don't have to fear the Americans. Our diplomatic immunity will protect us from criminal prosecution. They will only deport us back to England.
Yes, deport us. Back to England. And into the waiting arms of British intelligence and a firing squad. They shoot spies, don't they?
Now that I think about it, those harsh Russian winters don't seem so bad after all.
So it seems we have come to a consensus here as to who will defect and who will stay behind.
I don't mind telling you, I wouldn't want to be the man to tell Beria who's not going to defect.
I certainly would not want to tell him.
I don't think Beria, or Stalin for that matter, will like the choice that was made by those who decided to stay here in the States.
Beria said Stalin wanted everyone out of the country. And he meant everyone.
I have to admit, I'm going to miss the United States. But if we're arrested and sent back to England, that most certainly means a firing squad.
Those of us who choose to leave will be gone by tomorrow evening. After what we've done to both the Americans as well as the British, they won't offer political asylum to anyone.
I will inform Beria of what we have decided. After all, what can he do about it? He is in Moscow, as is Stalin.
FBI Director Hoover and the FBI did not break the Soviet code until 1951, much too late to stop the Soviets from compromising many British and American secrets. Donald McLean, Guy Burgess, and Kim Philby all managed to elude capture by the FBI by defecting to Moscow. John Cairncross eventually left for France, and Anthony Blunt was the only one who later returned to Britain. One can only speculate as to whether the Soviets played a role in the crash of the B-25 bomber number 44-31316 and the deaths of Captain William Davidson and Lieutenant Frank Brown. or if the real culprits were indeed patriotic Americans, sympathetic to the Truman administration, with close ties to the MJ-12 team, Truman, Stalin, and Beria. Because of the two new smoking gun documents, we now ask the United States military to once and for all release to the American people and to the world the true facts surrounding the events that took place near Roswell, New Mexico, around the first week of July 1947. We also ask the Congress of the United States of America to form a special committee to investigate the deaths of Captain William Davidson and Lieutenant Frank Brown, who died under mysterious circumstances on August 1, 1947, while on a secret mission involved with UFOs.